If you thought pop art died with the 60s, think again. Dedicated to celebrating the beauty of the image through an explicitly gay sensibility, French painter-photographers Pierre and Gilles have been creating striking combinations of pop and classical figures since 1976. Senior curator at the new museum, Dan Cameron, talks about where these witty artists fit in today's scene and what their works tell us.
My name's Dan Cameron. We're standing in the Pierre Gilles retrospective exhibition here at the New Museum of Contemporary Art in Soho in New York. This is Pierre Gilles' first museum retrospective in America, and as such it's drawn a lot of attention and curiosity. I think what makes a retrospective of Pierre Gilles' work particularly relevant at the present moment is that we are moving into an age in which art is becoming more hybrid. I think we're seeing less of an interest in purity and isms and schools, and more of a crossover. Pierre and Gilles were really the pioneers, in a way, of this kind of thinking in contemporary art. They started out in the fashion world, but then very early on they moved into gallery art. Not very many people in America were actually aware of the fact that all of Pierre Gilles' works are in fact unique hand-painted objects, that they function very much as a painting would in a museum. But there's something slightly subversive about the way they work with popular culture and incorporate a particularly gay aesthetic as well in their approach to art history. Each single work of Pierre Gilles it comes at the end of a very complicated process. I guess the first stage, since they're a collaborative team, is they talk about what they want to do. Then they make drawings and sketches and sort of lay out the way that the composition might look. About 60 or 70 photographs are taken in order to get the one image that they want. Then they make one perfect print of that image, at which point Gilles takes over. He's really the painter of the team, and he spends several weeks or often months completely painting over the entire work. So it's done in such a way to fool the viewer, so that you don't really know whether you're looking at a photograph or a painting, and in fact what you're looking at is both. And what we see in the work, particularly of the last 5 years, which is showcased in the last room of the exhibition, is a particularly melancholy aspect. The palette has changed. There's a more somber, sometimes sad view. You see forests at night. You see Juliet Greco bathed in kind of an autumn afternoon sort of shadow, and the overtone is one very distinctly of death and mortality. And I think it's terrific that what they've done is to actually continue their pursuit of beauty, continue their pursuit of fantasy in particular, but at the same time kind of work some ideas through in terms of this sort of darker and more melancholic palette. The work we're standing in front of right now is I Love You. In this particular work, you see that they're using a convention, kind of the Hollywood woman's movie of the 40s, particularly in the hair and the dress style. She gets the bouquet delivered to her of the beautiful flowers, and she stands thinking of the man that she loves, and her happiness is so great that it just floods over, and tears are running down her cheek. And what Pierre and Gilles are doing by painstakingly reconstructing this kind of visual archetype is saying, yes, you not only can believe in it, but we believe in it, and we're asking you to try to believe in it. We are constructing this iconic moment that for us is something very real and meaningful. I'm standing in front of a 1999 work by Pierre Gilles called Dans le port du Havre, which is, the model is Frédéric L'Enfant. Pierre and Gilles were both born and raised on the Atlantic coast in France, although in separate provinces. And marine imagery comes up again and again in their work. So the thing about sailors is that they always leave. That's the mythology of the sailor. And here the sailor isn't sort of just leaving, he's drowning himself in the harbor. But then it's also comical because he's surrounded by just, garbage, this flotsam and jetsam bobbing around, almost looking toxic in the water. The face of the model is almost extraordinarily innocent and somehow clean, and you think, what terrible thing could possibly have happened to this poor boy that he's now drowning himself in the harbor? So I would say that what their work is almost like this gradual building up over time of a parallel universe, if we can say kind of a gay paradise, where glamour and sentimentality in a very sort of old-time sense of camp and kitsch are really celebrated as almost heroic values. And then where the pursuit of beauty is something that's also adventurous and wonderful. And the worship of glamour becomes something that's really quite astonishing, if you want. It's a reflection of their astonishment at being alive.
What do you do when Louis XIV decides to drop in for the weekend with a few hundred of his closest friends? Hire Gérard Depardieu as your party planner. That's what you do. The sumptuous new film, Vatel, serves the banquet of the romance, pleasures, and intrigues of pre-revolutionary France.
It was the era of Louis XIV. Opulence ruled at Versailles.
How many fountains do we have, Calder?
1,500, Your Majesty.
Bravo!
But in the west of France, one province was out of favor and on the verge of ruin.
Nothing until our bills are paid.
The only way out? To invite the king for a weekend of spectacle.
If you value His Majesty's favor, you will set no limit to the extravagance of the festivities.
The only man who could pull it off.
Vatel!
Vatel! Vatel!
This banquet will be decisive.
The visit of His Majesty is the supreme test.
Everything must be perfect.
Everything will be perfect.
Who is this Vatel? Where does he come from?
Nowhere. Slums of Paris.
You let us taste flavors one shall never forget.
Our fate is in your hands.
Forgive me, madame. Allow me. Madame?
Madame.
But now, Vatel has fallen in love with a woman who's just come to the attention of the king.
The king begs the favor of taking a cup of chocolate with you in your room at midnight.
Milady, this is from Monsieur Vatel.
What is the matter with you?
It's the king.
Stay here.
I think I can do that.
Bring me this Vatel.
The king has called for Vatel. He's refused to come.
The true story of an ordinary man, a decadent king, and the woman caught between them. Academy Award nominees Gérard Depardieu, Uma Thurman, Tim Roth. Vatel.
The Living Theater has been breaking the fourth wall since 1947, mounting innovative productions that inspire, amuse, jolt, and outrage, and not necessarily in that order. At a recent exhibit, co-founder of the company, Judith Molina, talked to Canape about the work of her late husband and fellow co-founder, Julian Beck. We learn how painting and France are ingredients in the rich recipe of their theatrical art.
When I met Julian in 1942, he was already established as a painter. He was exhibiting at Peggy Guggenheim's gallery, and painting seemed everything to him. He was a very dedicated member of the New York Abstract Expressionist School. Shifted his career from being a painter to being a theater artist rather rapidly, somewhere in around 1945, when we decided to create the Living Theater together. And really, his theater work has always been a kind of an extension, a kind of furthering the frontiers of his art. I think his plays and his paintings are very much alike. Certainly he worked like a painter in the theater. He would drive us mad by looking at the empty stage for hours when we were trying to get up there and start rehearsing. And he would say, no, I have to see the space. I have to see the space. And then fill the space very much the way a painter fills a canvas. And then came the late 50s and the 60s, And we realized that as artists, we had a social responsibility. And so we became political activists as well as theater people. In fact, we were theater people because we were political activists. And being in that rausch, that intoxication of the time, when we all felt not only that we could do what we should do, but that we could in fact create the world we wanted to create. We could do it through the arts. We wandered around Europe from place to place, spreading the anarchist pacifist message, talking about the beautiful nonviolent anarchist revolution, and we're carried away by the tide of the times, and went, of course, to Paris in May '68. In fact, we arrived the night of the great explosion on the Rue du Sac, and we were part of that scene. We ran in the streets with the enragés. We occupied the Odeon Theater. We were part of that whole excitement of a lot of people who thought we were really going to change the world radically. And we did change the world, but not as radically yet as we wanted to. That's still to come. A few months ago, we went back to the Académie Expérimentale also to speak at the Odeon about everything that had happened there. And it was so strange to go back onto that stage where the last time I had been there, the police had pulled us out. And now to go back there and to talk about what happened and to talk about our real love for French. I mean, French culture, as you know, we have done. And we always considered ourselves sort of, French in the way that Gertrude Stein is French, you know, the people, the artists that love France. And as Gertrude Stein said, it is not what France has given us, but what France has not taken away from us. And maybe there for a while in '68, it did take something away from us, but it's given us so much more than that. France is still a great vision for us of the depth and the philosophy of art, in which it's always a few steps ahead of the rest of the world. And this is constantly an inspiration and continues to be.
It is a truth universally acknowledged that food and film go together. Academy Award-winning French beauty Juliette Binoche plays a single mother whose new chocolate shop stirs up the tranquility of a small village. Canape offers a nibble of the delicious decadent treat called Chocolat.
Once upon a time, there was a town that had grown cold from tradition. Until a woman came along.
Who the hell are you?
We hear about the patisserie. We'd like to rent it. And the apartment above.
And found a way to warm it up.
I heard she was some kind of radical.
I heard she's an atheist. What's that? Don't know.
Opening a chocolaterie just in time for Lent?
Oh, yes, it does seem inappropriate.
Chili pepper and hot chocolate.
It'll give you a lift.
Tastes like something I had when I was a girl.
For your husband.
Coconuts from Guatemala to awaken the passions.
You've obviously never met my husband.
You've obviously never tried these.
You have more of those bean thingies.
How many do you want?
How many have you got?
I should probably warn you. You make friends with us, you make enemies of others.
But I promise.
She's laughing at us, laughing at our traditions. When are you going to do something about it?
Why do you give a damn about what these narrow-minded villagers think?
We can force them to understand they are not welcome.
Would you like to come in for some chocolate?
What about boycott immorality, then?
What about?
From the Academy Award-nominated director of The Cider House Rules.
I'll come round sometime and get that squeak out your drawer.
Comes a sinfully delicious comic fable.
If I were 20 years younger, your virtue would be in danger.
Academy Award winner Juliette Binoche, Academy Award winner Judi Dench, Alfred Molina, Academy Award nominee Lena Olin, and Johnny Depp. Chocolat. This holiday season, one taste is all it takes.
A bold, harsh, yet funny assessment of the millennial West, the 1998 novel The Elementary Particles was a bestseller in France and angered clergy, humanists, and veterans of 60s radicalism alike. It's safe to say that any book that engages so many readers and angers so many pundits can't be all bad. Upon the occasion of its publication in English, author Michel Houellebecq talks to Canape about his novels and the quest for happiness in these turbulent times.
Oh, pour résumer Extension humaine lutte, non, c'est pas si compliqué que ça en fait. C'est deux hommes à peu près du même âge qui n'ont pas de réelle sympathie l'un pour l'autre, mais qui se retrouvent collègues de travail en province. Donc il y en a un qui est persuadé que cette tournée en province va être une excellente occasion de sortir, de s'amuser, de rencontrer des filles. Et l'autre qui lui dit que c'est complètement idiot, qu'il n'a aucune chance. C'est Philippe Barrel qui a voulu me rencontrer pour adapter ce livre en film et il m'a tout de suite convaincu.
Alors, c'est un bon week-end?
Voilà, m'en parlez pas. Je suis crevée.
Je connaissais déjà ce garçon. On avait plusieurs fois bavardé autour du distributeur de boissons chaudes.
On va faire une équipe super.
Généralement, il racontait des histoires de cul. Le problème de Raphaël Tisserand, c'est qu'il rebutait les femmes et qu'il ne réussissait pas à coucher avec elles.
Non mais tu comprends, j'ai fait mon calcul. J'ai de quoi me payer une pute une fois par semaine. Bon, le samedi soir, ce sera bien. Peut-être que je finirai par le faire d'ailleurs, mais je sais qu'il y a certains hommes qui peuvent avoir exactement la même chose et gratuitement. Et en plus avec de l'amour. Alors...
Les particules sont plus dures à décrire en quelques mots. Le point le plus important, c'est qu'il y a deux demi-frères et qui tous les deux vont tenter de vivre quelque chose d'amoureux. En fait, ce qui retient vraiment l'attention dans ce livre, c'est qu'on se demande vraiment si ça va marcher pour leur vie sentimentale. Souvent, ça tient un peu de choses, quoi. C'est une des conclusions qu'on peut tirer du livre, en fait. C'est que souvent, les choses peuvent basculer brutalement, de manière... dans deux voies extrêmement opposées, pour des raisons un peu inexplicables, enfin.
La lumière évolue, à peu près dans les formes. Je suis toujours couché au niveau du dallage. Il faudrait que je meure ou que j'aille à la plage. Il est déjà 7 heures. Probablement, ils dorment.
Dans les particules élémentaires, il y a des situations qui sont absolument pas humoristiques, qui sont simplement pathétiques. Et il y a d'autres choses qui peuvent, d'un sens tragique, mais d'un sens où on peut en rire beaucoup, quoi. J'essaye de me maintenir sur les deux. Parce que ça fait du bien aussi de rire de situations inextricables. Non mais en règle générale, il faut bien reconnaître que l'individualisme est une catastrophe, enfin... Bon, en général, quand on est obsédé par le vieillissement de son être, c'est une catastrophe parce que... on a beau prendre des médicaments perfectionnés et faire de la gym, ça marche pas, quoi. Quand on compare quelqu'un comme moi qui mène une vie parfaitement malsaine, qui fait jamais de sport, qui boit de l'alcool, qui fume sans arrêt et qui se soigne pas, et quelqu'un qui a une vie parfaitement saine, À partir de 20 ans de ce régime, c'est-à-dire entre 20 et 40 ans, la différence n'est pas éclatante. Hein. C'est-à-dire que la nature est la plus forte, quoi, et de loin. Il vaut mieux s'intéresser à ce qu'on fait, quoi, par exemple, qui vous survit.
Les masses d'air soufflaient entre les boscadieuses. Une femme haletait comme en enfantement, et le sable giflait, sa peau nue et crayeuse. Ses deux jambes s'ouvraient sur mon destin d'amant.
Jazz began as an African-inspired dance music in New Orleans. In the past century, it conquered the world, but stopped dancing. The wildly popular new recording, Tourist, wants to put the dance groove back into jazz and to put jazz back into dancers. The Frenchman behind the project is Ludovic Navarre, known to the world as St Germain. At a recent sold-out performance during his U.S. tour, he took time to riff with Canape.
Mon nom, Navarre. Prénom Ludovic, 31 ans, français, j'habite la banlieue parisienne, la banlieue ouest. J'habite exactement à Saint-Germain-en-Laye, près de Versailles. Voilà, et passionné de musique. La magie pendant le concert est la même pour tous les gens. C'est-à-dire que qu'on soit aux États-Unis ou en Italie ou en Allemagne ou en Suisse ou en Belgique, les gens ont vraiment le grand sourire. L'effet que ça me fait de jouer à New York, c'est un peu comme un rêve qui se concrétise. C'est-à-dire que déjà en étant chez Blue Note, et en étant chez Blue Note États-Unis, c'est quand même quelque chose de très... bon, c'est très personnel, quoi, je sais pas vraiment comment dire, mais c'est quelque chose que j'avais pas envisagé quand j'ai commencé la musique, et même après en ayant un peu de succès. Et le fait d'être là et les avoir vus hier soir, par exemple, et de jouer aussi ici, c'est un rêve qui se concrétise maintenant, disons. Oui. Très agréablement surpris. C'est vrai que je ne pensais pas du tout avoir ce succès en général, même sur l'album, en étant honnête, mais encore moins en France, je pense, ouais. Enfin, tout du moins pas celui-là. En avoir un petit peu, oui, mais pas celui-là. Donc c'est vrai que double disque d'or, ça fait bizarre quand même. Oui. C'est pas ça qui me motive, disons, très sincèrement, pour faire de la musique. C'est bien sûr que ça fait plaisir, mais ça me fait plus plaisir, disons, de savoir que les gens apprécient et ont envie d'entendre ce genre de mélange ou d'entendre ma musique, quoi. Oui, là, voilà, ça, donc ça me donne beaucoup d'énergie quand même.